Can I slip out for 1 second while you're going? Or no?
No.
Okay, I'm not slipping out. Right here.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Monday morning coffee chat. I have my coffee all ready to go, and I'm joined today by my friend Lisa Anderson in Piedmont. Buongiorno or buonasera.
Ciao, buongiorno, buonasera.
And where's your coffee?
The sun is going down. Huh?
Where's your coffee?
No, this is my coffee. Wait, it's very red.
Red coffee, fantastic.
Red coffee. It's
So
a little
what
wine at this hour of the day.
What are you drinking? What kind of wine?
It's a Dolcetto Superiore. It's one of our house wines in this area. It's really simple.
Excellent.
Excuse me. If I cough occasionally, I apologize.
So for those of you who are watching, if you haven't met Lisa before, Lisa has been on Adventures with Sarah a lot because she's one of my oldest friends, oldest in terms of the number of years we've known each other. And Lisa lives.
Not that we're not just young.
We are
fabulously young.
Yes, we are. We are fabulously young. So Lisa lives in Piedmont, which is the northwest of Italy, and she is married to an Italian there and has two Italian-American kiddos. And she has a blog called Lisa's Dolce Italia, where she shares stories about her life in Piedmont, but also her cooking, because she's an amazing cook. So what was for dinner tonight?
Minestrone. So just soup, veggie soup. And actually, I have to say, my husband on Saturday morning, he was inspired and he made ragu, so a tomato meat sauce, and he made homemade ravioli that we ate yesterday, and he made minestrone. So I actually haven't had to basically cook aside from my side dishes for the last couple of days.
Dang.
As much as I love to cook, I have to say it's been wonderful.
Jeez, yeah, Mauro's a good cook.
I love it. He is a good cook.
Huh.
So,
I did beef bourguignon this weekend, so we're going to be eating that. And I did a giant meatloaf. I took 4 pounds of ground beef and made the most enormous meatloaf, because I'm like, if I'm going to do this, because when I make meatloaf, it takes me
make it last.
Yeah, well, I do this meatloaf that takes like 100 ingredients practically, and so it's like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it so that I have enough to last me for multiple meals, because it's such a pain to make. But yeah, it's okay.
Just send me your recipe. You know, I've never made meatloaf. I've never made meatloaf.
Really? Oh, you'd love it. Yeah, actually, the recipe that I have is really good because it's full of vegetables. So I dice up carrots, and I have a bunch of peppers in my garden. So I picked a bunch of the Anaheim chili peppers, and I dice those up and put them in. And then, yeah, you basically kind of like super dice finely a bunch of different vegetables. And so when you put it in with the meat, can't tell it's full of vegetables. So it's a good way to feed children vegetables who might not otherwise. Actually, my children love vegetables, but
yeah, mine do too.
Yeah. So, well, of course they do, because you're a good cook. That's always been my theory, actually, is that anybody who says my kids don't like vegetables, it's because it's like, well, do you know how to cook vegetables?
That's an important thing.
Yeah. So you are such a good cook, and can you tell everybody where you learned to cook? Because you're good at what you do.
Where did I learn to cook? I learned to cook a little bit from my mom, because she always cooked, but she never really taught me how to cook. She made me fend for myself in terms of making sweets. She would never allow us to have sweets in the house. She was a real sugar is evil, sugar is the devil. And so when I was about 8, I started baking, and I don't know, I just got inspired. Bon Appetit was my favorite magazine as a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old. And I'd always try to make interesting recipes from that, and in particular desserts, and then just kept moving on. And then some things, of course, I learned from Melrose mom, but just trying. I don't know. I think it's just kind of like through osmosis, you know, you're around food and people who like to cook, and it rubs off on you.
Yeah. What do you think is your favorite ingredient that you can easily access in Piedmont that would be hard to get in the US?
Oh, mamma mia. Well, that's actually a hard question. There are lots of things and few things at the same time. I mean, really good stuff, all the different cheeses that we have access to that I would miss sorely, and all the different cured meats. I mean, the variety is astonishing, I think, when I go back to the States and I see the lack of choice. And there are some places that have great choices as well, but in comparison, pasta, so many types of wonderful pasta. And again, when I go back to the States, I live in Seattle, and so you can pretty much get almost anything there. But it comes with a pretty price tag. I think food is more affordable here.
Food is a lot more
And
affordable.
just the quality of produce.
Yeah.
Food is a lot more affordable here, yeah. And so I always say, the things I think I would miss, the things that I take when I go over are really good olive oil, which of course you can get, but you have to be picky and choosy there. Anchovies. Love anchovies. I could eat them every day, and I always take them to my dad. Gelato, of course. But there's not just one thing. They're really great bread. I remember Mauro, when we got married and we had his family over, and we stayed at my grandmother's house. And so we were cooking, our own dinners, and we had to go and buy bread every day because, you don't even think about it here. You just go to the local baker and get good bread. And, maybe for the whole family that we had for the wedding, we'd spend €2 for the day. And there we went and bought, enough bread for everybody. And it was like $10, and they're like in shock. But it's just bread. It's flour and water. Oh my God.
Yeah, it
that
is
was years ago too.
To get a good loaf of bread here in Seattle. Of course, everything in Seattle is outrageously priced, but even just a regular loaf of bread, I went to buy sourdough for the kids because they like sourdough at Fred Meyer, which is not a fancy grocery store. It's $5 for a loaf of bread minimum. So, and that's
that's insane. I went to one of our favorite bakeries in Bovis last week. So it's like a 15-minute drive from my house. And I always get extra bread to put in the freezer because I always forget to get bread during the day. And I don't love the bread in our town. I shouldn't tell the people here that. And so I go there and I get 4, like solid loaves of bread, what we call mica, and then 2 baguette style loaves of bread. But this is really good wood-fired oven. For all of it, I think I paid less than €10.
Wow.
So for what you paid €5 for, I got 4 times that, 5 times that, and paid a whole lot less. So
yeah, that sounds about right.
I like that about this place.
Well, and
it's access, easy access.
It is, and the quality. I mean, that's the difference. And I actually lament that when I come back here, and I of course get that shock when I first come back because I've been back for 2 weeks now, and I went out grocery shopping. And yeah, I mean, going grocery shopping with you or going grocery shopping with Andrew in Slovenia, all of these grocery stores have the most beautiful things like prosciutto and salami and really nice cheeses and really nice meat. And it's all like a fraction of what it costs here. It's kind of disgusting, honestly. I mean, if you want to get good quality things, like prosciutto kills me, of course, because if you want to get good prosciutto, it's going to be like probably $5 for an amount that is hardly enough to even put out for dinner. It's not even enough. So yeah, I find that very frustrating. So what are you making? What'd you make tonight?
I would find that frustrating.
What do you put into your minestrone?
We had minestrone. This was so a whole bunch of stuff from our garden. Sarah, I'm going to move inside, so I'm going to carry this for just a second with me because I can see my kitchen is cleared out and it's cold out here and it's getting dark. So,
it's
in the minestrone, Mauro put. It's cold. Oh my God, it's cold.
I just noticed that my tomatoes.
I have my down jacket on.
Yeah, my tomatoes. I think because the weather turned here in Seattle overnight, and it looks like I better get out and pick all of my tomatoes because they were still green, but this morning all the plants have turned brown. So, actually, Stacey and I were talking.
Yeah, our tomatoes. I think we've gotten the last of them.
I need to go out and get the last of mine. But Stacey and I were talking on Sunday morning, and she was like, "Oh, it's so rainy and cold here." And I thought, well, that's really weird because usually in early October in Italy, it's like late summer. It's usually like 70s and sunny and all of that. And I thought, well, that's odd. So I looked at the weather. The weather in northern Italy is more or less exactly the same as it is in Seattle this week. Because I thought, how depressing to be in Seattle. I'm not able to be in Italy. What a bummer. You know, it's in the 50s this week here and pouring rain, but it's the same there, which is so strange, isn't it?
It is, it's a really weird year. It is, well, I wrote a little article over the weekend, or I guess I published it over the weekend. We had huge floods here just over a week ago in Piemonte, in Liguria, and on the border with France going down towards Nice. I mean, catastrophic, once in a century floods.
Wow.
And it has just been a really strange year. So I don't know. But happier subjects. So you want to know what's in the minestrone?
I do.
It's all from the garden. I think Mel will put in squash. We have so much squash this year. It's crazy. I could start a squash farm. Zucchini, beans that, I don't even know what kind of beans they are. They're big, and we froze them this summer. They're about that big around, the OK symbol. And that went in. He put a couple of ribs, like pork ribs.
Oh.
It gives it a nice flavor. Yeah, just, throw it in the pot. It just kind of shreds after a while. Little Parmesan crust, carrots, onions, leeks. I think that's about it. All from the garden.
That's the fun of making minestrone and making soup. Actually, I love soup weather because of this, because you can just do whatever you want. And actually, that's what I should make this week for the cooking show, is just soup. I should do, because I love to make soup. I love to make broth.
Oh, yeah.
You just toss in whatever you've got. And right now, yeah, the garden has all kinds of random things. I don't know why, but I grew rutabagas this year. I don't even know what to do with rutabagas.
Oh. Actually, I think they would be good in soup.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it would be like a potato soup, I guess, in the end. So I guess I should try making soup out of them. So, so one of the things I think is always interesting when you and I get together is just to talk about, like, what are the differences between raising kids in Italy versus raising kids here, because our kids are more or less the same age. So my kids, as you can hear in the background, are here. You can't. Oh, Luca's playing his flute because he's got band right now. So he's playing his flute on the other side of this wall. And Nico is downstairs in the basement, hopefully working on his classes. So so my kids are not in school. My kids are home, but your kids are going to school, right? Well, one of them.
One of them is, although he has been homesick. He was homesick today and has already missed a week of school. Yeah, that's been a really weird, it's a weird world this year with school, because, we're just kind of waiting. A lot of schools have been closed down due to positive COVID cases. I mean, a couple of days ago here, I think it was 40 schools in Piemonte are closed, but they're temporarily closed. The idea is that they're set up to immediately start online teaching if they get shut down for quarantine, and then hopefully after 2 or most 3 weeks get back to normal. Fingers crossed. Our school hasn't been closed yet. Our kids have to stay home for just about anything. And one of the things that actually I have a call to make later is about being able to follow the classes while the kids are at home. Because if our kids have any sort of fever, anybody in the house has a fever, they can't go to school. If you're really being strict about it. I mean, they don't want them to go to school. So if you're being 100% correct, our kids are going to miss a lot more days this year, just due to relativity, because maybe you have an older, younger brother and sister that's home, because kids just get sick. I mean, they get flus, they get colds, they get whatever, somebody else. And we're trying to get it so that the kids can follow the lessons even while they're home sick. And for some reason, last week it came out that they can only do this if it's a certified COVID case, which makes no sense at all. Because if you're at home, you're at home, whether you have COVID or whether you have something else. If you're so sick that you can't follow the lesson, okay, obviously you're not going to. But if you're at home, you're healing, you're more or less able to follow things. It should be available for everybody, regardless of whether you have COVID or not. So this is the battle I'm going to fight tonight, because I think it's ridiculous. If it's something that's set up it's set up. I don't understand the logic behind it, but the Italians don't always have firm logic behind the rules that they make.
You think?
You know that.
Yeah.
So,
They're not the greatest on, well, it makes sense to them. That's the thing, is it's logic that makes sense to them, but it may not be logic that makes sense to our American brains. So
I don't even think it makes sense to them all the time because, you know, a lot of people question it. We're just sitting there going, what, how does that work?
yeah. Well, here we've got, you know, the kids they're not going to school. They're doing everything remote. And the big battle that I've been fighting is that, you know, they're being graded now. And what's really frustrating is that a lot of the teachers, all of them have different standards. They all have different ways of grading, and they all have different technology that they're using. And so this has been the big battle with me and my kids, is that, like, I mean, between two kids, I have 12 classes that we have to be keeping track of. Every single one of them is using a different platform. So they may be using Teams, they may be using Zoom, they may be using something called Flipboard. Like, they have all these different kinds. And the teachers just sort of automatically assume that the kids know how to use all this technology, you know? And so, like, Nico was behind in one of his classes, and part of it, I think, was that he didn't know the programs they expected him to know. And so there's all of this expectation put on the parents and the kids, that the kids are going to know how to do this stuff. And I just think, man, if I was actually in Italy right now, like, I mean, I don't know how any of this stuff would happen without a parent sitting here and being available to help the kids 20. I mean, I don't know how people who are working every day in you know, at a job where they can't stay home, I don't know how they're doing it. So that's the frustration on this end, is it's like the schools are expecting way too much of everybody, and they're not being very forgiving, I don't think. That's the thing that I find a little bit shocking, is that they're not as flexible as you would think.
And it's surprising that they don't have a standardization for, at least for the school, right?
No, they're all different.
Wow.
Every teacher can do whatever they want. You know, there is like a one portal that they use, but then every single teacher puts their assignments in different places. And yeah, it's a total nightmare the way the Seattle School District has done a really miserable job on all of this stuff. So yeah, it's been work. It's like that is my job now. My job now is to make sure that my children get educated. So at this point, I feel like I should just be doing homeschool. So, and actually I did this week. I pulled Nico out of his language class because the teacher was very difficult. And so I'm going to teach him, I'm going to sit down with my Italian textbooks and try to see if I can get him a credit course in Italian so that he can do like a homeschooling Italian class, because that seems more useful anyway. I mean, he probably should learn Italian anyway. So maybe I'll have him call and practice with Emanuele one day. So how's English classes going with them?
Oh, that would work, actually.
Good work. Yeah, I thought Emmy could be his teacher. So we've had
English classes with.
Well, you and I've had a lot of very funny conversations, I think, about your kids taking English classes, because they're native English speakers. And so they're learning English in school from people who are not native English speakers.
Right. And there have been some really interesting pronunciation issues that have come up, like geese. The geese.
The what?
You know what geese are?
No. Oh, geese.
They fly. Geese.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. There was another one. What was it last week? I don't remember. Oh my gosh, I have to ask Emanuele what the word was. In English, Emanuele, I see Emanuele is walking down the stairs, that your teacher mispronounced. What was the word? No, what was the other one? Oh my God, it was hilarious. It wasn't beach. Was it beach? No, what was it? It was funny. You asked me last
Italians
word,
tend to pronounce beach. They don't pronounce it beach. They pronounce it bitch. That's the way Italians pronounce.
They say bitch. They do.
They do.
And it's the chicken kitchen conundrum.
Yeah, they have a hard time between those things.
Oh, but Filippo's, one of his teachers said, instead of weak, like to be a weak person,
yeah,
she'd say weak, because it's W-E-A-K. So weak in Italian.
Weak. Oh.
Because it couldn't be pronounced like week, because the days of the week are spelled differently than week. But that's the hard part about English. So yeah, we get some good ones to chuckle over.
Well, I remember you've had some actually like battles with the English teachers, because they were claiming that they knew better than you did.
Well, yeah, or not me even so much. Just they would correct my kids' pronunciation.
Yeah.
I try to be diplomatic and not make the situation worse. Let's say we don't want to be on our teachers' bad sides, because one of the things that's different here is that our kids tend to have the same teachers for all the years that they're at that particular school.
Oh.
So a few teachers can change, but Emanuele basically had the same teachers in elementary school for 5 years. Now he's in middle school. He'll have the same group of teachers for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And so if you rub somebody the wrong way, it is not a good thing.
Because then,
not
yeah,
a good thing.
You have to deal with them.
In fact, I have a friend who was telling me about a situation with one of her friend's English teachers last week. And actually it had to do with wearing masks, because apparently this teacher is not respecting the rules. It's not in one of our schools. And she said something to the teachers. It's like, look, can you please, I'm saying this because the other parents are talking and we need you to please wear your mask. And her daughter came to her the next day and said, Mom, I really wish you hadn't said anything, because now she's on the naughty list, even though. So we have to walk that line very carefully.
It's unfortunate it has to be like that, but it is a little bit like that here too. So I understand that feeling, because yeah, there are some teachers that the kids have just over and over again for their entire career. I think Lucas had the same French teacher for 3 years. So yeah, it can happen that way here too. So what's in the news in Piedmont these days? What are people talking about?
What are people talking about? The floods were the big thing that we're working on. Of course, coronavirus is at the top of the news right now, which is just not that much fun. There's no big changes going on. I wish there was. The truffle fair. They're talking about the truffle fair in Alba, which actually did open.
Are you going to
go? Not right now. Too many people.
Anna will have to be our correspondent to go up there and cover the truffle fair.
Anna might be willing to do it. I don't know. We're going to do something. I think she mentioned something that we're going to do live in a couple of weeks. That's out in Malanga. I'll see once the crowds die down. It's that first couple of days because it literally just opened. And so while they're only letting a limited number of people into the actual fair at a time, the line outside was pretty horrendous. And well, I like conservative side. I don't want to be large, but usually when you get to the end of the month, it chills out.
Yeah, well, and this is an interesting thing that maybe people out there don't know, is that this is the time in Italy for the sagre. And could you just explain to people a little bit what the sagre are?
Yeah, sagres are just local festivals, fiere, that are focused around whatever product that town is known for. So we'll have the Sagra dei Pori, the leek fair coming up in Cervasca. Oh, that one's always in November. Usually, actually, a lot of the Sagra have been canceled this year. We would be going into our Sagra delle Castagne, the chestnut fair in Cuneo, but it was canceled this year. C'è uno dei funghi, so mushrooms, polenta. There's going to be the Fiera del Capone, so the fair of capons, castrated roosters. That's just a couple towns over. That comes up in November as well.
And what usually happens at these festivals?
Anyway, they're always really good fun. You have markets and local products. So you always have like fair booths where people are selling whatever, if they make something or they have a local product, maybe they make jewelry or hammers. So there's always a market. And then usually they have a place where they do meals at a lot of them. I think Anna just posted something from the Fiera della Zucca, the squash festival. And you can usually go and get plates of whatever the local specialty is under tent. Again, social distancing this year. We have the Fiera del Bue Grasso of the fat oxen coming up in Peru. And again, they usually do a big tent. And for, I don't know what it cost last time. I have to ask now, about like €20. You can go get a full meal based on that food. And then there are a lot of really fun wine fairs in the Langhe. But again, this year, unfortunately, no. But one of my favorite ones is in Murazzano. So Murazzano is famous for its cheese. And the first time Mauro and I found this festival, we were just driving around the wine country, the Langhe, one day, and we happened across the town of Murazzano, and there was this thing going on, and it was 10,000 lira. So this was probably 1998, maybe 99. And 10,000 lira, we got a little pouch that we put around our in it, and you started this meeting with it, climb up the tower at the very, very end. It was brilliant.
That's fun.
And
How
those festivals, you can have.
That's the fun
Go
of these
ahead, sorry.
festivals, is that you can when you see these festivals, sometimes they just are sort of pop up and everybody's welcome. You know, I've run into festivals like that too, where they seem like they're local, but you know, you're welcome to sort of just jump in and join in with all of them. So, and usually the food is really good, but then the local traditional games, that's the thing that always makes me laugh.
Would you remember years ago when you came to visit me and we went to the Fiera del Paese? So this was in August, and they had the Pallone Elastico.
Which was hilarious.
Yeah, it's a really weird game. It's only played in like Liguria and Piemonte, and it's like a cross between, I don't know, cricket and tennis, and I don't even know how to describe it. With the batter, do you remember that?
Yeah, it kind of, it seemed a little bit like a cross between like badminton and cricket or something like that. That was really funny.
Yeah, it is probably badminton, not quite. Yeah, it's a weird game. That too, though, we didn't get to play that this year. So hopefully everything will be getting back to normal next year. I know.
Yeah, because I was at your house this year during the Fiera del Paese, and yeah, they didn't do it. That was too bad.
No.
That would have been fun to check out. So what are your theories on when things are going to get moving again in Italy?
Ha ha ha. Bella domanda, bella domanda. I'd like to say tomorrow, but that's certainly not true. You know, we're getting underway with our second wave here, and we now have masks. Our masks have been mandatory inside and when you move around in crowded places for months now. But now there's a new decreto, a new rule that anytime you're in public, you have to wear a mask. And so they're really starting to clamp down on it. There've been a lot of cases where people are getting fined. When you're driving in a car with people who aren't part of your family too, they can stop you. And if you're not wearing masks, you actually can get really hefty fines.
Even in the car.
Hopefully,
that's
even in a car.
Wow. But that makes sense. You know, actually that makes a lot more sense than even being out in public, because you're in a small
You're in a close space. Yeah. And if you're with people that aren't part of your immediate family. So we get randomly flagged down alongside the road. You know, it's not like they're going to just stop us for not wearing masks in the car, because maybe I'm with my kids and it doesn't matter. But we have random traffic stops anyway. Have you ever been stopped randomly when you've been driving around with somebody?
My bus was randomly stopped once. Actually, no, I've had buses stopped more than once. I've had buses stopped in Sicily.
Oh yeah.
So the buses get stopped. No,
I've never been stopped while I was on a bus.
Really?
No, thankfully.
I got stopped once. Let's see. So once when I was outside of Assisi, my driver was going way too fast. I mean, he actually, I remember I was in the bus and I was texting our friend Daniela, and I said, please just remember that if I die in a bus crash, it's because my driver's going so fast. And then I hit send on that message, and literally 2 minutes later, like it was almost like I sent that message to God, because then we got pulled over by the police, and oh man, my driver was so pissed. He was mad. That was I think I've told you that story. That was so funny, because this guy gets pulled over and he was so angry about being pulled over, and one policeman was a man and one was a woman. and they asked him for all of his records and the disc, you know, because he has to show them like what his driving history is and all this. So they wrote him a really big fine because he was going so fast. I mean, I was like concerned, and I kept telling him, piano, piano, like, what are you doing? You're going too fast. And he wouldn't slow down. And so they asked him for all of his paperwork and all of that. And he just gets in the bus and he starts going on about how it's because that was a woman policeman, and if it hadn't have been a woman, that he definitely wouldn't have gotten stopped and he wouldn't have gotten a fine, and I can't believe women. And he looks at me, this is a guy who was recently divorced, so he was really mad at women generally, and so he started looking at me going, women are just the worst, and women blah, 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 telling me all these things about how terrible women are. And I just looked at him and I said, oh honey, you know I am a woman, right? He just goes, but you're different. You're not really a woman. And I'm like, that's such a funny thing. I hear that all the time from men. I don't count. That's what he said. You don't count. I'm like, oh, okay.
Why not?
Yeah, so that was a really funny one. The other time I've gotten stopped, I think my buses have gotten stopped a few times, but in Sicily, it was actually coming out of the Villa del Casale, which is where there's a lot of buses coming and going. And it was just one of those ones where they just flag you down and they just wanted to go through the driver's records. So that was kind of a nothing burger.
Really fast.
Yeah, and they're just, you know, but that's the interesting thing. I think if people have never driven in Italy before, that's interesting, is that a lot of times the police will literally just park along the side of the road, and then they have the paddle. And then if the paddle shows red, the next car coming up has to pull over, and it's kind of like a random stop. It's not, they don't actually have to, you don't have to have done anything wrong to be pulled over in Italy.
No, actually, there are very few people who have done something wrong get pulled over in Italy. And there are plenty of them. I've seen many people who should have been pulled over and haven't been. No, it's a random, it's an anti-terrorism, anti-mafia controls that they just flag you down. They check your documents, your insurance. You know, if you're coming in from Switzerland, they might check your trunk for that unmarked Swiss bank account that you're bringing money back into. And I've been stopped, actually. The last time I was stopped, knock on wood, it was a couple of years ago, and I was on my way to a parent-teacher meeting in Cuneo, and I was running late. And I was like, oh, damn, really have to stop. And, they, took my license, and they're sitting there going, what are you doing here? Why is there an American? Why are you an American here in Cuneo? This is weird. And it wasn't until like 5 or 6 months later when we went to buy a new car, and I checked my driver's license thinking I might need my driver's license when buying the car. I didn't. But it was a good thing I checked because it was expired. But it had actually already been expired when they pulled me over. And they didn't say a word. They took it theoretically, they checked it theoretically, and they didn't say a word to me. So then I went into a panic going, oh my God, am I going to have to take the test again? I don't want to take the test again. I didn't have to. Filippo's going to take the driving test. Wait, what's today? On Wednesday, Sarah, I'm going to have a...
What?
I know.
So he did, that's a lot of study too, isn't it?
It's a lot of studying.
Wow.
But he has been working hard on it. And so once he gets his theory passed, which I'm sure he'll ace it, he has to take a month before he can take the actual physical driving test. He has to do 10 lessons with the driving school, and then fingers crossed he will have his license.
Wow, that's exciting.
So. I know. I'm not sure. Well, I'm excited, and at the same time, I'm a little nervous because I haven't actually taken him out to drive yet. And I realize that I need to go out and make sure he knows how to use the clutch. And
yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. Luca is starting to, well, he's 16. So I've taken him out a couple of times. I know my dad's taken him out a couple of times, but he gets into my car and he's too afraid to drive my car because my car's, my car. My car's new and nice, and he's afraid to drive my car. I asked him just to pull my car around into the driveway. And so I got in the passenger seat and I had him just literally 100 feet drive my car from in front of my house into the driveway. And yeah, that was enough that he's like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. So we need to get Luca like a beater car. So I'm trying to find like a beater car that we can get him so that if he scratches it or something happens to it, that he's not going to be upset. I think he's just too afraid to drive my car. So
I think that's a good idea. Well, we have a really old Yaris that we're going to take Filippo to learn on. Actually, he can drive a nicer car when he's with us learning to drive, which is, it's a few years old. It's a Toyota Verso. So it's just a normal car. But when they actually get their licenses here for the first year, they have to have a car, which I think the motor's under 100 cc, so it can't go really fast, theoretically. And he says, well, I can learn to drive on a Lamborghini, Mom. You can teach me to drive on a Lamborghini. I was like, yeah, in my dreams. In my dreams. You keep dreaming.
So a Yaris fits into that box then, huh?
Sarah, can I answer a couple of questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
What?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was noticing there are a couple of questions that have come up here, and Jerry asks, what area am I in? I'm in northern Italy, northwestern Italy, near Cuneo. If you look on a map between Cuneo and, excuse me, Torino, it's about, or Cuneo and Mondovia, it's about an hour south of Torino.
There was a question about how are the bus drivers?
The bus drivers are, taking turns, a lot of them driving the city routes, because the buses are parked. I think I remember showing Sarah as we drove by the bus depot when I picked her up from the train station. And, you know, there were a few local tours going out. And so every now and then they get something with Italians. But other than that, we have our local bus routes. Every bus company where I live gets a portion of the city routes, depending on sort of where they're located. So I picked you up in Fossano at the train station. And so they'll drive a route from Fossano to Cuneo, from Fossano to Alba, from Fossano to wherever. They'll get those sections of the routes, and each bus company gets a percentage. And a lot of times right now, they're just taking turns. And Mario in particular, I think Pat asked about Mario, my favorite Mario, who lives not very far from me. He's actually not working at all. He's technically retired. He is working a lot because they have a chicken farm. So he's his wife with their chicken farms. So
oh, that's fun. I've heard from some of the other bus drivers.
But they're going to work.
Yeah, the bus drivers, the Heidebloom bus drivers that if you guys have been on Rick Steve's tours, you've been with a Heidebloom driver, probably the ones from Belgium. I know that some of them have gone on city bus routes. That seems to be the most common. And then of course, our friend Richard, who's a very colorful bus driver that a lot of people know, Richard Franson, he just started driving trucks. We all love Richard.
With lots of great shoes.
With lots of great shoes. He's going to be the most well-dressed trucker that exists, I'm sure, with the cleanest. Yeah, Richard's a character.
With the cleanest truck. It's going to be immaculate.
Oh, it will be. Our bus drivers, if you guys have never taken
bus drivers
before, those of you watching, if you've never ever taken a tour before, it's not just the guide, us, that runs the show. Most of the time, our bus driver, and they usually have a lot of personality. So Richard has the most personality of all of them. He's like my brother. You know, we've known each other for 20 years. But most of these guys, like, I'm so excited to find out who my driver is normally, because generally I've done a couple of tours with all of them. And yeah, they're like, it's like our extended family. So yeah, I miss those guys. They're all crazy.
They are, though.
Yeah.
I know Dino, too, from Altarini is working a city bus route right now.
Is he? Okay. Yeah, I wonder about
the bus drivers go crazy too. I mean, it's hard for them right now because they're so used to being on the road all the time, and the ones that do it really love it.
Yeah, well, and they love being a part of.
It's been a hard period for them.
Yeah, they love being a part of sort of the. I think that I've noticed when bus drivers retire and they
tour family.
Yeah, they love their tour family. And when they go to the city bus, I know that a lot of them get kind of depressed when they start driving the city bus because there's no interaction with people. Like you know, they just get on and off the bus. Whereas when they're driving the tour bus, they get to know us. We go out for dinner. I mean, it's kind of a whole culture, and the bus driver and the guide are kind of like the head of the family kind of thing. And yeah, I know that for them that's a tough thing to switch from tour bus driving to doing either city bus or trucks, you know. So it's the same for us. We miss our people. We miss being on our buses and leading groups and having fun. And yeah, it's rough, but yeah, it is what it is. So
I miss the guiding. I did. Can I tell you what I was working on today, though? Because I was working on Andrew was talking to me because I'm working on this tour. Wait, I saw a half-naked child run behind you. Sorry, shirtless. He's working on the Piedmont Tour. So
cool. So what's going on with the Piedmont Tour? So Lisa's going to be doing next year a tour with through Andrew and I. Andrew and I, we run our tour company, and Lisa's going to be our first collaborator, I guess you could say, not employee, but collaborator, I guess. And you're going to be running a tour of Piedmont. So what you got so far for your Piedmont tour?
So I'm being optimistic that maybe we'll be able to tour in April. To put a date down, obviously it's not firm because nothing's firm right now. Sure. And it's going to be a pre-tour extension if anyone's interested in the city of Turin, going to the automobile museum because, you know, Fiat was founded in Torino, and the Palazzo Reale, the Savoia family, was based in Torino. That was a major capital for one of the most important noble families in Italy, and the cinema museum, because Italian cinema also has deep roots there. And then coming to, it's a 1-week staycation in Cuneo, which is a really great town very near where I live. And we're going to be going on truffle hunts, wine tasting, chocolate making, beer, Pinocchio murals. The largest elliptical dome in the world, actually, is not very far from me, at a place that was a really important pilgrimage site before Lourdes was built. It still is. Just all sorts of really good stuff, dining in medieval castles and just exploring the region with a 1-week stay, so you don't have to pack and unpack your bags. And
that's going to be
hopefully we will be able to tour by April. I'm optimistic.
I got a message about that today earlier, because I already have our Veneto Slovenia tour with Andrew is already sold out, and we're starting a waiting list on it. And then I'm doing Morocco.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And actually what I'm planning with Stacy and Elisabetta in Venice is that we're going to do a week tour staycation in Italy before Veneto and Slovenia. So if anybody wants to do both, they can, but also just, I think it'd be fun to do. I've been wanting to do a week in Venice for a really long time, utilizing all of our contacts there, you know, especially in the art community. And yeah, there's just a lot of things we can do. So we're going to do a week in Venice in, I guess that would be late April. But I did get a question today, somebody saying, do you think that that's too early? And, you know, I think that because they say a vaccine is not going to be ready available until the summertime. And honestly, I think that a vaccine is not the thing we need to be waiting for. Because I think what's going to happen, my sense is from people that we know, and also just following like the international, was it the IATA, which is the air traffic, or the Alliance of Airlines. What they're planning to do is to do this rapid testing on both ends. So like before you take a flight, you have to prove that you don't have coronavirus. You take the flight when you get off, when you arrive in the country.
And then once you get there.
Yeah, you take another test like that. I think I would like to think that by probably March is my guess, they're going to start opening borders again. I think they're going to just have a protocol in place for how you test before you leave your home country. And I think masks are going to be required in public for a long time. This is not going to be something that's over in the summer. I think masks are just going to be a part of travel for at least, I would guess, 4 or 5 years at the minimum. Because I mean, even if they have a vaccine out tomorrow, not everybody's going to take it. Not everybody's going to do it. And it's going to take a long time. So I think that travel will resume. I don't think that the travel industry can wait much longer, number one. But number two, I think that there are safe ways to go about this. You know, I think that, and actually I got an interesting article in the newspaper from another person who's traveled with me before. And she sent me an article about how you have more of a chance of getting struck by lightning than getting coronavirus on an airplane. So it's just not,
that's what they say, that the airplane, the rate of COVID on airplanes is really low there because they're being so careful.
Yeah.
So I hope. Well, and I was looking at.
Go
ahead.
No, you
Sorry.
Go.
I was going to say another thing that I was looking at was with the bus company. You know, I talked to them and said, you know, with the rules as they are right now, if people are able to travel, how many people can I have? And so groups will be no more than 10 people. So really small, and also just trying to get on into the place, not finding crowds. Because and when we do have crowds, we will have to wear masks. I hope we're not wearing them for 4 or 5 years, but I absolutely think that we will be wearing them for a few years. Yeah.
Yeah,
At least,
well, and I think
least one,
yeah, at least
probably
one.
more.
But then that's the whole strategy that you and I and Andrew are working on is, okay, so let's say it's safe to travel on an airplane. So how do you keep people safe once they've arrived? So that's why we want to keep the groups to around 10 people, because that's fewer people to be exposed to, and then staying in one hotel, because then that's fewer people you're being exposed to, and then staying in the countryside, because yet again, fewer people you're being exposed to. So that's my strategy for next year, is to try and keep people as safe as possible. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how things go. It's all a mystery right now, but we hope that it's gonna work out okay. But you know, every day you wake up and you think there's got to be something's gonna have to change at some point, and then it doesn't change, and it's like, oh, are you kidding me? How long is this all?
But it will change at some point. It will.
Yeah, yeah. But you can actually already travel. Actually, I was just talking to, I've been messaging our friends in Turkey, because people are already traveling safely in Turkey. So, you know,
fantastic.
It is possible. Yeah, I mean, they have these really high standards that the government is overseeing, and you have to do certain things. And so, yeah, in Turkey, apparently they're doing really well with keeping people safe when they travel. So, you know, I think the whole idea of waiting for a vaccine is sort of, it's a great idea, but I don't think that's the magic bullet personally. So,
well, I think, you know, if you can get, one of the things they talk about is the COVID test being expensive, expensive. When when I took his test a couple of weeks ago, I asked them actually, what's the cost if I were to come and pay for a COVID test privately in the hospital? €53.40. So, you know, if you want to travel and you need to be somewhere, even if you're required to pay 53 or even 60, 70, 80, 90 euro, I mean, but a reasonable price. If you're willing to travel across oceans to be here and spend thousands of dollars on a trip, you're probably willing to spend 60, 70 bucks on a COVID test, right? I mean, I think that's a fair assumption.
I think that is a fair assumption.
Because I don't think the government, I mean, the strains on all of our governments right now are, I think, significant. And I don't think that we need a bunch of people from outside the country adding more strain to it. But I think if people are willing to pay privately for those tests, I think it would be great. And I would too, if I needed to go somewhere, I would be happy to pay for that.
Well, and some of them are doing that. Like Iceland has the test that you take on arrival, and it's 60 euros that you have to pay upfront. You pay before you even arrive. So
yeah, that's brilliant.
And in Rome, I know that when you land in Rome, our friend Alfredo, he just flew into Rome and he did a test on arrival, and it only took 30 minutes and it was free. So I think that that's going to be kind of the way things go in the future. So are you having questions?
Yeah, I'm looking at insurance may require a COVID test. Yes, it absolutely might. That's MJ O'Connor. Ciao, Susanna. And Jerry too. He said he's getting so tired of this COVID stuff. I know, I want to see family in the United States too. And I know I could, but it's frustrating not being able to travel. I was looking to see if there are any other questions here, but I think people are just more or less. Travel insurance, that's an interesting question, actually. I was wondering right now if the travel insurance policy that I bought, because I get an annual policy, would cover me with COVID, but it's kind of a mute point because it expires in December. And I don't know, I haven't looked into coming to the States because I'd really like to, at some point next year, go and see my dad, even if it requires a quarantine. You know, he's 82 and it's been a long time. And
well, when I got back here, nobody even mentioned the word quarantine to me. So I got off I got off the plane in New York. New York JFK was empty, absolutely empty. Like there was nobody in the passport line. I had to renew my global entry card, which was great because I just went in and all of those people had nothing to do. So they interviewed me on the spot. It took like 5 minutes. They asked me the questions, they finished the global entry thing, and then they just sent me on my way. And that was it. They didn't say a single word to me about, oh, here's some paperwork, you need to quarantine, blah, blah, blah. Not a word, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, which I thought was really strange. Although the flight that I came in on only had like 30 people on it coming from Rome to JFK. It was the weirdest flight ever. But yeah, they didn't say a word to me. Just because I'm a cautious person, I've basically stayed home since I got back, because, it's the right thing to do. You just want
Well,
to
you
be.
have a social conscience. I know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that it has to kind of be up to you, but nobody even suggested that I quarantine when I got home. I would have thought you're going to get paperwork. Like when I came back from Egypt and I landed at SeaTac. SeaTac actually is a much more, they're more into regulations here. So when we got off of the airplane coming back from Egypt in March, we were met by people in the full PPE stuff, and they were taking temperatures
Oh, wow.
getting off the plane. And then they handed you, depended on who you were, but they were handing people some paperwork when they got back from, and this is in March. So yeah, the SeaTac airport was like all over, greeting international flights in full gear and all of that kind of stuff. And they didn't, I think that they said it was a suggested 2-week quarantine at that point, but it wasn't mandatory. But yeah, on this round, it was like nothing. They did nothing. And they weren't taking people's temperatures, nothing. It was really super weird.
Really?
Nothing.
When I flew back from the reunion, the Rick Steves reunion that we had in January, they were taking temperatures already when I got off the plane there.
So crazy. Yeah.
So I guess that was right at the beginning of February, but way before the whole thing exploded in Europe.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, I was really stunned when I got to New York. What was just 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago. Yeah, you just get there and it was like literally nothing. And there's all these people who have nothing to do. Like all of these people who work in the airport who got nothing to do. You would think, well, they're bored. They're gonna screen everybody getting off the plane. They're gonna take their temperatures. They're gonna give them, paperwork or whatever, because they've got nothing to do anyway. But nope.
But if you go out somewhere where you are now, because I have no perception of Seattle, and I'm from Seattle originally. But
Yeah.
if I were to go to take a walk in downtown Seattle because I have errands to do or something, what percentage of the population is going to be wearing masks? Do they have to wear masks? Like right now, I mean, when I go to town, everybody has to wear masks. And I've noticed that everybody is now wearing masks.
If you go into a building, you have to have a mask on.
Yeah, but outside on the street.
Outside on the street, if people are just walking, I would say half of the people have masks on. Like I go down and I run the lake a lot down at Green Lake, and I've been bringing a mask with me, but I would say half, maybe not even half, wear their masks. Restaurants, all the tables are really spaced far apart, but not a lot of people are eating in restaurants. And actually, this is quite interesting. In Tacoma, apparently, my parents live in Tacoma, and they are starting in a week, I think it is, an incentive to get people to eat at restaurants because nobody wants to eat in a restaurant. So they're doing a thing where the government's going to pay 30% of your check just to encourage people to actually go out.
Oh, that's interesting. They did something like that with vacation vouchers here this summer.
Yeah, they did. I remember.
Yeah, we paid for one night of a hotel, and it was specific hotels that were, participating, but we paid for one night, the hotel paid for one night, and the government paid for one night.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really good idea, actually, to get Italians traveling. Yeah.
And it really got Italians traveling. And we didn't go very far from home, and we were always in places. We were, outside. We were hiking basically most of the time. But the hotel was immaculate. They use ozone now to clean the rooms, and yeah, it was lovely. That was the only 3 days of vacation we had this year.
I noticed the thing that I thought was
maybe they'll do it again.
The Italians are so far ahead of the game, especially with the cleaning standards and all of that. Even in the Florence airport, they had a robot that was misting everything, wandering around the airport. And before I could even go into the Florence airport, this is when I flew down to Sicily in August. And before you could even enter the airport, you had to go through like a triage tent where they would ask you questions. They took your temperature, and then you had to walk through like a misting port where they misted you before you could even walk in the airport. Yeah.
Interesting. That's kind of...
no idea what I got misted with, but I got misted before I got on the plane to Palermo. So that was weird. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen
You've
with
been
travel.
disinfected.
Yeah, I was disinfected somehow. So yeah, who knows? I want to come back though. I think I'm going to probably come back in January, February-ish, something like that. So that's definitely going to happen. I'm going to come back to see you, but to also work on Guide Collective stuff and a million other things that I have that I need to be there for. So I hope I hope Filippo will get himself a job so that I can have his room.
Now he has a job this winter. He
He
does. He
does.
does.
So Filippo is Lisa's son, and I think I've told you guys the story before about how one day I was staying with them, just sitting around the table, and Lisa and Filippo and I were talking about social media, and we set up Filippo's social media account and your blog, and we were just kind of talking about stuff like that. And then look what happens: your blog does really well, and then Filippo becomes a professional social media manager.
That's what he wants to do. Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's his job. And he just set up a new website too, but he hasn't told me the name of it yet. I'll have to go and ask him. Probably FilippoPaisino.com. I think he just got his own domain actually.
Oh, that's
Photography. So no, I'm very excited for him. Yeah, I'm very excited for him and his winter job.
Yeah, well, and for
now we just have to pray for snow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know in Sicily, Mount Etna got a bunch of snow last night, so there is snow, I guess. But I think it's really exciting to see Filippo get a job though, because people his age, he's 18 and 19, so not a lot of people are able to get jobs straight out of school, are they?
Oh no, it's really, really hard for them to get jobs out of school. Until they're 18, they can't get jobs because nobody wants to fill out all the paperwork that's required to hire young people. And then afterwards, just the youth unemployment rate is extremely high, and even higher now. And
Yeah.
it's just not as common that kids would go out and get like an after school job or a part-time job. It's not easy. So no, I'm very proud of him for that. He got it all by himself.
Yeah, and it's the perfect job for him, doing social media and photography and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. He loves it. And to give him an apartment.
That's crazy. I mean, what a great deal for him. So, and he was going to go to university, but he decided to defer because what's the point of going to online university, right?
Yeah, well, he was supposed to go to California for university. And his mama and his father don't really want to send him to California right now. No offense, California. And it would be online.
Yeah, I mean, why would you fly all the way to the US just to sit in an apartment in Los Angeles and be online? That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, about how interesting it's going to be when Luca has to apply for university a year from now because he's a junior and he'll be next year. There's going to be an interesting situation because there's going to be a lot of backlog of students who took a year off this year, I would betcha.
I bet you're right. Actually, that's going to be interesting to see how it affects everything. But does Luca want to take a gap year? I mean, I know a lot of kids do actually want to take a gap year now.
You know, I didn't want him to take a gap year, and I wouldn't have suggested it, but because of how weird everything is right now, because right now he should have been taking the SATs already, but now they've put the SATs off. The whole timeline is screwed up and all of that. So I'm starting to think more and more, just because everything is such a mess and there is going to be such a big backlog of students trying to get into colleges and start their first year and all of that. Yeah, I may just have him take a year and just basically maybe be an employee, like work for me or work for someone else, get a job and just sort of try out life on his own for a year. I think that might be a good idea. So
I think that's a great idea. Well, if travel opens again, have you ever looked at the Workaway website? Oh my God, it's so cool. I would have been all over it as a kid. You can do exchanges for room and board, and you do work exchanges, and they have places all over the world. Workaway, really interesting. So if travel opens up again, Filippo was looking at a little bit at that, but again, it's unfortunate timing.
Yeah, well, what I'd love to do with if he takes a gap year is I want to send him somewhere. I want to send him, I would send him either to be near you or near Andrew, get a little apartment somewhere near people that I know and have him get some sort of job of some kind somewhere else, working, cleaning hotel rooms or whatever. I don't know. We know lots of people that own hotels or restaurants or whatever, where, I wonder if we could get him a job. Just,
get him a TEFL certificate. He could teach English abroad. He'd have to get himself the TEFL certificate, but yeah.
That's a really good idea, actually. He could come and teach English. That would be a really good idea. Yeah, I think that would be nice. If he takes a year off, he's not staying here. That's for sure. He has to go and do something. But also in Thailand, our friend over there, she calls himself his Thai mom, my local guide there. So I think that she might snap him up before anybody, so he could take a year to go live in Thailand, which wouldn't be terrible. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm starting to warm to the idea of a gap year just because I think this whole COVID thing is going to really screw up university for kids in general, which is
Yeah, it's putting everybody on hold. I'm sorry, I'm looking at a question, Sarah.
Any other questions?
Well, it was answered. I'm married to an Italian. I am married to an Italian. My husband is Piemontese doc, born and raised in the town we live in, and lives in a house that was built by his father, which is beautiful. Oh, and somebody's talking about never checked out Workaway. Check it out. Even middle-aged old me. I think you could absolutely. I would look at it if I had time to travel, because there's something for everybody. This is a question about Workaway.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I love scrolling through and just seeing what people are saying. So, and thank you for listening.
Well, my friends, we have used up our hour. Lisa and I could just talk for hours and hours and hours as we usually do, but we will go ahead and finish up our coffee chat. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. And thank you as always, Lisa. It's always a delight to talk to you.
Sarah.
Lisa, I would say of all the people I know who are expats in Europe, I think Lisa is the one who has done it the best. She's got her act together, and that maybe the next thing you should do is write about like helping people figure out how to be expats, because you're so good at it. You figured out all the things. It's complicated.
It is complicated. It is very complicated.
Yeah.
But the number one thing is you have to want to assimilate yourself into the culture. I think makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, studying the language. So thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. This week coming up, we've got some really cool things. We've got tomorrow, we're going to be doing cooking. I'm going to be doing, I was thinking truffle lasagna, but now that we've talked about soup, maybe I'll do minestrone. Maybe Lisa and I can talk about that, about a minestrone recipe. And then Wednesday, I'm going to be doing my slideshow about my trip to Italy and Sicily for my Patreon supporters. And then Thursday, we've got, I forget, we've got Alfredo. Alfredo's going to cook with me on Thursday. And then Friday, very late at night, I know it's 11 p.m. Hey, Filippo. That's her son, who's the social media manager. Friday, my friend Hoda in Egypt gives us a tour of the pyramids at Giza. And she is one of the most gifted tour guides that I know. So please try to stay up late on Friday night. It'll be like Saturday Night Live, but it'll be Friday Night Live here on Adventures with Sarah. We're going to get a tour of the pyramids of Giza. And I really encourage you not to miss that, because it's the best virtual tour experience I could hope to offer. So I'm very excited about this. And Hoda is she is magical. She is such a great guide. So tune in the rest of the week for all of the good, fun things we got coming up. Hello to Filippo and Emanuele and Mauro. Ciao.
Sarah says hi. I've got my earbuds in. It says hi. Filippo, what's your website? FilippoPaesino.com. There we go.
FilippoPaesino.com. And then your website is lisasdolceitalia.com. And that's where you find out all about her life in Piedmont, her cooking, and all great writing that she's doing. So, all right, va bene. Great to see you. Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Ciao, Sarah. Thank you.